Is Missing a movie you should go searching for, or is this one to miss? Let's find out now. Hey everyone, this is David Stark from Watcher Pass, and I'm going to talk to you about Missing, which comes at theaters on January 20th, 2023. It is from the same people that did Searching, which was a surprisingly well done found footage, but from like an internet device perspective film that came out in 2018. It feels like so long ago. It was 2018. That was before devices were basically like people's outlet into the world and how we communicate. It feels like the way that our computers and devices interact with people has become so much more entangled in these last 5 years, and Missing kind of takes that to another level and puts it into this thriller formula. Now, Searching was also a thriller. It has a similar kind of feel, but Missing has a different perspective on it, and it has a bunch of new updates. So my hot take is, look, I think you should watch it. It's really good. I really liked how it was done. I liked it was like a fast-paced thriller. It felt like there were smart updates to kind of the current state of technology, and that also makes it very relatable. Like the fact that the characters are using various apps and various ways to get things done and communication protocols and things like that. It really kind of makes the whole movie feel more up to date and more modern, as you'd expect in a thriller like this. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the film, a few things I liked, a few things I didn't like. Well, actually, there really wasn't anything I didn't like. One minor thing. And then I'm going to go into the ending. So as you can imagine, in the ending section, there will be spoilers if you do not want to know what happens in the film. And I highly recommend that you do not find out what happens in the film before you watch it, because there are several really interesting, because there are several plot twists and turns and things that turn everything on its head. So I definitely don't think you should watch it. But if you have already seen it or you really want to know what happens, you can stay to the ending section. But if you don't want to know, that's fine. I will give a clear indication when I get into the spoilers, and then you can turn this off at that point. So just some basic information about the film. In Missing, you have the main character is this person named June, who's played by Storm Reid. She is 18. She is a kind of rebellious teenager. She definitely has some history of grief in her past that is causing her to just be kind of a little more disconnected with her mom. Her mom is named Grace. She seems to be doing everything she can, but June just doesn't really connect with her. She's connecting more with her friends. Look, maybe that's just normal teenage angst. Maybe that's normal kind of separation when you get to that point. But at the start, she just couldn't care less what her mom does. She basically just kind of views her as an annoyance. Now, Grace takes a trip with her new boyfriend, Kevin. They go on a trip to Colombia. Seems normal. June, kind of lives her life during that time. But something happens on that trip that leads to a whole new mystery, a whole new set of rabbit holes that June kind of explores as she tries to figure out what happened and what to do next. So, things I liked about this movie. The first is the use of different services. And this is not new from Searching. Searching also had kind of a nice amalgamation of different ways to communicate information and ways to interact with people that kind of piece together into a movie. And Missing does this also, and it does it really well. Like you've got iMessage, you've got some Facebook, you've got different payment services, you've got some, underground-ish type messaging information, you've got just a whole slew of different ways to communicate the information that Missing uses. And it does kind of keep it fresh. It keeps it so that you're not like, it's not like a normal found footage movie where you just got like a camera and you're watching them. You kind of see information from all different angles. You see different views as new avenues are discovered. It keeps the movie moving and kind of keeps your interest there. And it's a really great way to make a thriller. The second thing I loved is it's kind of related. It's the updates to the formula from Searching. You've got new, not really new ideas, but maybe things that are more normal now. Like at one point, they hire someone to do something that kind of helps with unraveling the mystery, and then they use some like dark web stuff in the film as well. And also just the apps in general have been updated as our current world is kind of moving towards different apps. Like TikTok is present, and certain like influencer type situations are included as well. So all that stuff does make this feel more modern, more fresh. I do like that the film updated the formula for our current time. The third thing I really loved is the mystery. Like, this film is a thriller, it's a mystery, and there are a lot of unknowns that kind of get unraveled throughout the film, and lots of things that happen that kind of like twist and turn the story and kind of keep you guessing up until the very end. Like, it's a pretty well done way to tell the story and also kind of keep the audience wondering what will happen next, especially how some of the information is presented in one way that is then viewed differently once you kind of learn more about what happened. And the last thing I really loved are, I'll just call it the little touches. There are lots of little things that kind of make this film feel, I mean, it's a film, but it feels like a little more authentic. Like, one thing I loved is at the start, there is this this true crime documentary that they're watching. And he's dealing with a situation that happened in Searching, the 2018 movie about Margot Kim, and then like this reenactment is like showing Margot Kim's story in this like Hollywoodish kind of way. I liked that tie, but then also more kind of akin to the little touches. There are things that happen where someone will type something and then it'll have like a typo in there, or they'll kind of go back and reevaluate their writing. There's little things like that that let you know that they took some care in how they were telling the story. Also, I really love that, you know, a film where a lot is communicated over kind of FaceTime and things like that. Occasionally you'll have the camera start to have some static because the signal's not well, or you'll have some noise. Now, it's not prevalent. Like, oftentimes when the story has to get told, it'll become very clear, which is good because it helps you kind of know the story. But I do like the little things there here and there that make it feel like a more lived in world. Things I didn't love as much, I mean, there's really not that much. I guess, to have this story happen, there are some leaps that you have to take, some very kind of big coincidences that happen. So, if you're worried too much about that, you might not enjoy it. But if you just kind of sit back and kind of enjoy the film and enjoy the things that happen and the surprises that you get, it is a very enjoyable thriller that will keep you guessing. So that is Missing. It comes to theaters on January 20th, 2023. I definitely think you should watch it. It's a pretty fun experience, and it's definitely an enjoyable thriller. Now, like I said, I'm going to get into the ending. So if you do not want to know what happens in the film before you see it, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you do not know what happens in the film. It's much more fun to kind of see the surprises. Turn it off now. Go check it out when it comes to theaters on January 20th, 2023. But if you've already seen it, or you must know what happens, let's get into the spoilers. Again, last warning, there will be spoilers. So at the very start of Missing, you see this really sweet video, like home video of June, her dad, and her mom all in this new house. Her dad's like playing with this video camera. It's really sweet. They're enjoying it. And then eventually her dad like has a nosebleed. Like, what's going on? And then that kind of cuts out, and you see in like someone's search history something about a brain tumor, a brain aneurysm, things like that. Um, and then it cuts to modern times. The video was in 2008. Now it's modern times. June is 18, living with her mom Grace, and Grace and her boyfriend Kevin go on a trip to Colombia, kind of almost like a surprise trip. It seems like they go to Colombia for a week. June's at home. She does what any 18-year-old would do. She just parties with her friends, has a good time, makes a mess. She goes to pick up her mom after a week, and no one's there. Kevin and her mom just don't appear. So she starts getting worried. She tries to figure out what happened. She calls like the embassy in Colombia to figure it out. She also uses a TaskRabbit person in Colombia who becomes an integral character in this. His name is Javi. He's a really fun like boots on the ground character in Colombia that helps her out with some of the investigation. But eventually, we find out that Kevin and her mom Grace were kidnapped in Colombia. And you're like, oh my gosh, like what are they going to do now? They're trying to find her. They're trying to figure it out. But as June keeps digging and starts going through various profiles, she can't get into her mom's information, but she's able to figure out enough of Kevin's information to get into Kevin's emails and other accounts. And she starts to kind of figure out some other things are happening. And one weird thing is we find out that Kevin has a past where he essentially stole money from women that he was pretending to date. And he also, right before the trip, messaged someone that looked very much like June's mom, Grace, in this kind of obscure thing. Like, she's in the picture and he's like, "You're perfect." So this kind of starts June wondering like what is happening. Like this guy has a past. He's a felon. Like maybe he's doing this as my mom. Maybe he's trying to get her money. And this leads her to call a number that Kevin had. Jimmy, who was part of this like outreach program to kind of help uh, felons reintegrate into the world. It's like an AA for felons, just like a support network, a support person for Kevin. So she's like, okay, that's a little strange. So after you find out that Kevin has a past, June starts looking into like her mom and Kevin's dating profile, and we see this like nice, sweet sequence of events where they're kind of getting to know each other, and then they start to open up to each other. And Kevin says, you know, he has a past. He wants to tell her. He apparently tells her. They don't have that conversation, but Grace, you know, sends him a message saying, "I also have a past. I'd like to tell you as well." And then that's all we kind of know from them. But it does seem like a sweet interaction, like a sweet relationship. And then June is able to find some footage that shows that Kevin proposed to her mom on the bridge. She's like, okay, so it was real. But she digs further back into some of the images and things that she was sent during the trip. And eventually she's able to see like an image that is a live picture. So there's a little bit before the picture that was actually sent. And she finds out that it wasn't actually her mom that went on the trip. So all these images that she's seen of her mom in Colombia, it wasn't actually her mom. So what happens? Well, as the investigation continues, we find out that Grace never actually made it to Colombia. This causes a whole nother slew of, you know, rumors and hyperbole and things like that. They finally find this person who was impersonating June's mom named Rachel Page, and she says, "Oh no, this he hired me for this weird like dating show. I thought I was on like a reality TV show, but then when they were kidnapped in Colombia, she's like, I couldn't handle it after that. Like I had to run from that." So after this whole firestorm happens, we then find out a little more about that hint that June's mom said when she said like I have a past too. Boom, we find out that Grace might not actually be her real name. She might have had like a past life, like an alias. But they don't know because it's sealed by the court. And you're like, what is going on? Like that is crazy. Like this person has apparently another secret life. They both have secret lives. Like what could be happening? So as June is kind of digging deeper into this, she finds an encrypted messaging service that Kevin had used. And so she uses the information to log into it. And there's like one conversation, and she kind of continues it. She says, like, are you home? Like, where are you? And she's like, no, I'm at work. She's like, what's your number? I have to call you. The person, this mysterious person, sends the number. June looks it up. It ends up being her mom's friend, Heather, this lawyer that her mom knows that actually was like watching June while they were gone. And so she's like, what is going on? Like, why would her mom's friend be talking to Kevin? She all kind of suspected her mom might have had the hots for Kevin, so that this like makes the mystery go crazy. She goes to confront Heather in her office. She gets there. It's dark. I don't know why she doesn't turn on a light, but apparently she doesn't want to turn on a light because that makes it much better of a thriller. Heather's computer is being wiped for some reason. She goes into a back room, and there's Heather. Heather's dead in the back room. So now this just makes the mystery continue. You're like, okay, so Heather must have known something. She was killed by Kevin to stay quiet. Okay. And then we find out that Kevin is in Colombia still. They found him. He's confronted in Colombia. He never escaped. So like this makes the mystery even weirder. But the police in Colombia end up shooting him as he's on the roof. And so Kevin is dead. The mystery continues. But now the case is cold. Like what could possibly, like how can they possibly find Grace if all the suspects are dead? The only people that they have are Kevin, the Uber driver that drove them to the airport because the Grace got into an Uber car, disappeared on the way to the airport, and then, you know, hasn't been seen since. And then Heather, who apparently knew something about it. Most people are dead. They don't know who the Uber driver is. The case is pretty much dead. So now June starts to kind of listen more to her mom's voicemail. She's like really worried that her mom is gone. And she finally gets a little piece of information that lets her access her mom's email. And in the email, this is kind of a jump here, but it's fine. In the email, she finds one blocked user who says, "I found you, Grace," kind of saying that they knew her secret identity. She uses that email address, searches Kevin's email, and finds a purchase for some sort of security system with that email. She logs into that security system, sees a bunch of cameras, and it looks like it's the same place that this Jimmy church ministry person uh, was involved in. And that's kind of a strange connection. But anyways, she's watching this. She's getting very scared. It's very dark. You can't really see what's going on. And then she gets a call from Jimmy, which that is quite a coincidence. Like, oh my gosh. And that person calls and talks to her and convinces her like, hey, he's here. So he goes up to her ring doorbell, takes off his hoodie, and it's her dad. And you're like, what is going on? She lets him in. He talks to her. He says, like, you deserve to know. Her dad explains to her that June's mom's real name is Sarah, and they were together, and I guess Sarah didn't want to be with him. She lied to put him in prison for 12 years and take June away and like restart this life. And so her dad has been looking for her for all this time. And they're like, okay, that's terrible, but kind of a sweet situation. Then he says that her dad met Kevin when they were in prison together in Texas. And that's when June starts to make this connection of like, her dad looks very similar to this blurry picture they have of the Uber driver. And she makes that connection, and she's like, you were there, like you kidnapped her. And that's when it kind of snaps. She like runs for her phone to try to get her phone. Her dad grabs her, takes her, throws her in his car, and drives way out to the middle of nowhere to this like house that was the ministry services. And then we get a little bit more of this whole picture. Her dad, Jimmy, was abusive to her mom, Sarah at the time, now Grace. And so Sarah basically looked a lot, like found some abuse hotlines, found some resources, eventually found the courage to report her dad and like put him away. And then so in that first scene, you see a little bit more of that very first family video, or after his nosebleed, June goes away and Kevin like and Jimmy starts to like yell at her mom, like basically accuse her of things, and you find out that the nosebleed was actually probably from drugs, and her dad was starting to kind of move drugs, and just a terrible person, a terrible situation. And June's mom was scared, so she got the courage to accuse him, convict him, and then she just up and left and started a new life in LA under a new name. And that's why those court documents are sealed. And Rachel, her friend lawyer, was the person who kind of helped her do all this, start her new life, get a new identity pro bono. So you get this backstory, but now we're in a very bad situation because now June is in this house that no one knows about. And we can see all this from like the camera feed in Grace's house. So you kind of see it from the cameras. It's kind of a nice way to tell a story. But Jimmy takes June, throws her in like a room, locks it, and he goes and gets a gun and goes to the shed. And the shed was featured prominently when the security footage first came on. You kind of figured that that's probably where something was going to happen. And in the shed, you see Grace. She's like tied up in there. She looks like she's trying to free herself. And Jimmy confronts her. They fight. She hits him on the head with a like a board, and runs out, locks the shed door, and runs in the house. She gets there. She tries to free June. June is obviously like elated, but also very scared. And so they try to free each other. And then when they finally do free each other, you see that that Jimmy has already escaped. He's at the door. He's at the door with a gun. Grace gets in front of June to protect her, and Jimmy shoots Grace in like the stomach, and the bullet like goes through and like breaks some glass behind her. June is like trying to escape. She's trying to get to this camera, let people know. Her dad gets on top of her, tries to stop her, and during this time, Grace shot, not doing that well. She grabs a shard of the glass and stabs Jimmy in the neck. So he's not doing well either. You see him kind of like hobble off. Grace collapses. He hobbles out. He locks the door so June can't get out. There's nothing she can do. And he kind of like hobbles to his computer and starts looking up like hospitals, and then slumps over. So now June is in a very bad situation. Her mom is shot and probably bleeding out. No one knows she's there. And her dad is crazy and also probably dying. So what can she possibly do? Well, she remembers that there is a camera in the vent of this room that she's in. She remembers seeing it from the security footage. So she gets the camera, tries to like get some people to help. And then she also remembers that she doesn't have her phone on her because her phone was left on the desk in her house. And during all this time, there's all sorts of low battery things happening. You're like, oh my gosh, like what's going to happen? Throughout the film, there have been like references to the fact that June's mom uses Siri all the time and like Siri for everything, and it's silly. But now maybe it'll finally come in handy. So June looks in the camera, says, "Hey Siri, I'm gonna have a delay here so that your phones do not do this." Then she tells it to call the police. And so that is finally what gets the police out there. And you see it kind of like fade to black. And then you see this like action packed hot car coming in, like zooming in, like sliding on the gravel, getting to the house. They break in, they find them, and June gets up, and it's not June. It's someone that looks kind of like June, but like more like a actor. And then it pans back, and you see that this is the like Netflix true crime series that was at the very start, and that June watched a lot of, is now telling her story. And so it's sometime later, I think it's like maybe a year later. And you can tell that June is kind of like off living her life. I think she may be in college, and she's talking to her mom, but they are now like in a much nicer relationship, much happier relationship. And so her mom seems to have recovered. June's in a better place, leaving that the relationship has come through, and everything seems to have worked out. The police must have gotten there, saved her mom, figured out what happened. You also find out that the person that June had been communicating with in Colombia, Javi, was also in a better place. He reconnected with his son. He seems to be doing well. And June's mom and Javi just became Facebook friends. So who knows what will happen, but that is missing. That is the end of the film. That's all the mystery. So some of the things that are kind of story leaps that you have to believe. There were apparently 3 minutes that the Uber car stopped. So somewhere in broad daylight in LA, they were able to kind of like knock out June's mom and put her, I guess, in the trunk of this car. That's the only place it could have been, because after that, Kevin and Jimmy drove to pick up the actor who was playing June's mom for the trip. So somewhere in LA, they were able to stop in broad daylight, knock someone out, take her to the trunk of a car, and no one noticed. Okay, that's kind of a big leap. That's fine. And then they got this actor and went to the airport. So there's two implications from the story that I wasn't really sure which it was. One, Jimmy found Grace, through lots of research, and then used his friend Kevin to come in and woo her and set up this whole kidnapping, which seems like a lot of work. And also it's weird that Jimmy would have been able to kind of like find Grace and use all this computer technology, because he's using like an encrypted browser and things like that when you see his computer. But then he needs Kevin to come and set up the security system, because that was the hook, right? The Kevin's email address, or Kevin's or Jimmy's email address was in Kevin's email about the security system. Okay. So that's one side, and then he used Kevin to do this whole subterfuge. But that is a little bit of a problem, because Kevin used his real name. He was a felon. He used his real name. This does not seem like a smart situation. He probably would have created an alias if he was going to do this whole kind of secret life thing, intercept. And it seemed like a lot of work to get all this done, to get Grace out of the country, to then have this kidnapping happen. Okay. Other option is that Kevin matched with Grace randomly. They hit it off. They did really well. They liked each other. They both had a past. They had shared connections, things like that. And then he went to visit his old buddy Jimmy from prison, and that's when all of a sudden, like, or I guess maybe Grace told him her past, that jogged a memory in Kevin, and he went to visit his old friend Jimmy and told him, and that's when this whole like plot was launched. But that seems really weird, because at that point Kevin really did like Grace, and so to think that he would like give her over to his cellmate, that seems like another jump, right? That seems like a big jump, that he would then like go into this plot and also kind of risk the rest of his life, because he used his real name, he used everything, like his own information. He was a felon in the past, so if he would participate in this plot, it was not going to be good for him. So again, like I said, you got to make these leaps to enjoy the film. But if you just get past all that stuff, it's a really, really fun film. It's a really good thriller. So definitely check it out. That's Missing. That's in theaters on January 20th, 2023. And thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.